Mr. Husick, thank you for joining us today. Now, you've been a long-term supporter and advocate for the tech and startup sector. In June last year, you called for a smart restart post-COVID-19 period. How do you believe that startups can help rebuild a new and stronger tech industry?
I think given the pressure, the enormous pressure that our economy's been under, huge job losses plus businesses that would have gone against the wall, faced closure themselves, we do need to rethink the way in which we can grow new firms. I look at the whole life cycle and the whole from startup to scale up and then becoming established firms in their own right. So we do need to think a lot about that. We need to think about how we can support those firms if they've got the ideas, how we support them with capital, how we support them with skills and particular people themselves. And at that point in time, when I'd called for the smart restart, it was right when we were in the middle of, or at the sort of what we were looking at, longer term, a really big issue in about April, May of last year. And there were some ideas that were right for then. I think there's a longer term thing about looking at, for example, the Accelerating Commercialisation Fund and whether or not we can support that more, what we can do around angel investment, because the concern has been that there's seen a contraction over 3 years prior to going into the recession. So what we can do with respect to that, what we can do on skills, and particularly I've been talking with people about not only the people coming into the sector, but people that are looking for new work and want to be able to be supported to reskill and move in. So we have that as well, and how we can build the linkages between established businesses and startups as well, and government supporting startups, particularly through probably the most vital platform, which is procurement, and giving them business rather than just a handout and being able to prove what they're able to do. So I think there are a number of things that have to happen, but we need to do it faster. We need to have a belief. One of the big things since coming into this role as Shadow Industry and Innovation Minister, one of the biggest things I've been pressing is to have faith in our skills and, more importantly, our smarts, our ability to get things done, to solve problems, and to know that this is not something new, that we have had to do this for generations, given we're on one of the most isolated continents going with a very small population. We've had that challenge. We can get these things done, but I just think we've doubted ourselves a bit, and I think we need government to send the signal as well. I just don't think the government's saying, for example, we can just adapt or adopt someone else's technology from overseas as the answer to our problems. That is a terrible signal to send to the local tech community, the sector that knows how much potential it has.
You have joined with business and community organisations to set up tech hubs to help 4,000 local public school students become familiar with the technology that will shape their lives in the years ahead. What do you think of the current state of the Australian education system, and what should be the main focus of improvements?
The good thing about my area is that a lot of the schools are thinking deeply about the skills that their students are going to need in the years ahead. And I'm not just talking the high schools, and there are a number of them that I really have a lot of time for what they're doing, but the primary schools as well, and they're getting kids engaged early, and importantly, they're also engaging teachers in skill development. So they'll have teacher development days where the teachers will actually go away and learn a lot in the tech and digital arena, so that they can then be in a much better, stronger position to transfer skills to eager students. So there is an appetite, and one of the things I've been very focused as a representative of Western Sydney is to ensure that there's breadth in skills development, and importantly, to send the signal to young people that this isn't just something in terms of innovation and the application of tech and digital skills. It's not something that's done on the eastern side of the city, that outer suburban kids have got just as much. We need as many people as we can. With the persistent skill shortages we have, we need to have breadth in skill development, and we need to infuse a lot more people into this, and we need to show that this is a national mission in terms of boosting innovation. So the education system, there are people that are definitely willing and able, but we also need to exercise leadership wherever we can across government and business to say that we're all in it, we've all got to chip in, and we're all expecting that people will do so.
Mr. Husick, you recently visited a Tesla factory and commented, I quote, "What struck me visiting Tesla was at the time when we had just chased car makers out of Australia, they were welcoming new car makers. Walking around that floor opened my eyes to the prospect that it can be done. End quote. What is your vision of smart cities and innovation tech such as electric cars for Australia?
I think a lot of people, particularly as I asked the question about why we're not, being able to, or why we haven't found the way to build EVs in Australia, the response to that was incredibly positive. A lot of engagement by people that do believe in the heritage that Australia's had in manufacturing. We've got a lot of muscle memory around in terms of that skill. We've got one of the largest savings pools in the globe through our superannuation funds. We've got a tech sector that, particularly with these vehicles now, there's so much more by way of software within those vehicles where we can get people locally to help in that process. And also, what's transformed this form of manufacture is the fact that EVs are a lot less complex than internal combustion engines. And the fact that we've got a lot of people looking at, for example, our advantages in rare earths, plus, for instance, the development of battery technology in this country. We've got so many of the ingredients there that we should be able to look at what we do in this space and then integrate it within city planning as well, and having smart infrastructure support that. And I think there is a willingness to embrace this, but again, government seems a lot slower to do so. I think too, on the smart city area, there's this other sort of thing that's edging in around privacy and data use too. So until governments get their heads around that, it will be something that I think holds back the promotion and development and rollout of smart cities. Not like Asia's been very focused on it. For instance, you go to most major Asian capitals and they're focused on, in our neighbourhood, smart city development. Ours not so much, but I think where we can, we do. So how do we move people better? Traffic management internally in terms of the way that cities function. We are thinking about some of that application. Probably always comes down to a question of speed and how quickly we're doing it, but there is scope there. And again, I'm a big believer that governments, when they speak about this more and they back it up with resources and they coordinate people, can get a lot done.
As a graduate from the University of Western Sydney, how do you believe the improvements you're petitioning for the Chifley area can grow Western Sydney as the tech centre for New South Wales?
I think we've got a big challenge to move innovation from outside inner city locations within Sydney and Melbourne. Brisbane's thinking a lot about this, and given Queensland is quite unlike any other state in our country, with a very strong regional character to it, and the fact that you've got so many different parts of the state that are much more remote and far-flung from Brisbane, and so they've got to be able to stand on their own 2 feet economically and socially, and they're thinking a lot about this as well, and we just need to be able to spread innovation activity. You see it in South Australia thinking a lot about it. Perth too, one of the big things I've constantly said is that if we've got innovation as a national mission, we've got to ensure that we've got all the different corners of the country working together on this. And so I do think that if it's out of suburban areas like mine or in other capital cities of the country, and the fact that we've got to draft so many people in the skills arena to be able to help out, that's going to take a lot. And again, coordination is key. And I think we can do it. I do sometimes worry that kids that aren't necessarily encouraged to get involved think that it's not something for them. And I just think that's wrong. Really, the application of tech and digital is about problem solving, about improving the way people do business or live, or the way that communities function and operate. And so we need a lot of people from diverse backgrounds to be involved in that problem solving effort. Otherwise, we're just really just using the same laneway to attack problems. I think diversity is going to be very important in that regard.
Mr. Husick, thank you very much for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.